You're traveling through another dimension. A dimension not only of sight and sound, but of Twilight Zone reviews. A journey into a wondrous land of intoxication where a father, son, and guest drink and retell episodes of The Twilight Zone.
There is a fifth dimension.
Stay tuned because your next stop is the Highlight Zone After Hours.
The Twilight Zone.
And welcome to another episode of the Highlight Zone After Hours, the show where we drink with a friend and retell episodes of the Twilight Zone in 5 minutes or less. I am one of your two co-hosts, Steve.
I'm Kelly.
I'm Kelly. And our special guest this week, I'm freaking pumped, the owner, the CEO, the mastermind behind the All Things
The owner.
Network, my best friend, Steve-O. What's up, buddy?
What's going on?
Steve is starting a new show. And Steve, real quickly, tell us a brief bio, because it's odd that the timing worked out well that you started the show soon and we're doing this episode today.
It is. So it's called The Paranormal Pair. I'm doing it with a friend from a friend. She is named Scully, and it's going to go over paranormal stuff, UFOs. I say fun conspiracies because conspiracies are just wackadoo that we will not cover.
So your show, the pilot episode, I listened to it.
It's
I was
up
a big
now.
fan.
Yeah.
And you do a thing at the beginning. And Dad, I wanted to do it with you on this
I have
one.
it. I can bring it up.
Okay.
You want to
so
do
he
it real
asked
quick?
Real quick, Dad, answer these questions rapid fire because we got to get to our show. But I like this idea. And I think that he has a yes to most of these things and has a story
Okay.
to back it up.
So the idea is you say yes or no, go with your gut. If it's iffy, just pick one, and then
Okay.
that's it. Ready?
Go for
Believe it or not, ghosts,
Yes.
heaven,
Yes.
hell,
Yes.
portals,
Yes.
crystal skulls,
Yes.
horoscopes,
No.
tarot cards,
No.
possessions,
Yes.
Bigfoot / Yeti,
No.
UFO, UAP,
Yes.
reincarnation,
No.
Moth-Man,
Only after several drinks. Yes.
witches,
Oh, I've worked with a few of those too. Yes.
vampires.
Oh, absolutely.
Wait, really?
No. No.
Okay,
No.
go back to being serious.
I'm sorry. Take off vampires. Everything else, yes.
Okay.
The physical manifestation of the Grim Reaper.
Yes.
Intelligent alien life.
Yes.
Alien life in general is a yes, obviously. Are we living in a simulation?
No.
That's the list. So we
Okay.
do that list to kind of set expectations of whoever is
Got it.
on with us.
So first of
Yeah.
all, this is awesome. I love you just did that so fast, Steve. Two things I noticed. Number one, a hell of a lot of your answers surprised me, Dad, because I thought yours were going to be more in line with mine. I said yes to about 3 on there. Yours were yes, yes, yes. I think
Yeah, there's a lot of yeses.
yeah, you'd be a fun one on here just because you've got stories that you have told me from back in the day when you were on your mission too that were bizarre.
Oh, yes.
as well.
Yes.
So, and can you tell everyone what's your history with the Twilight Zone? Did you watch it as a kid? How did you get started in it?
I would watch it often. It was for us, it was on Channel 56, I think. Like late at night. It was like Star Trek. There was no Star Trek, and then Twilight Zone on Channel 56. So I would watch it after Star Trek if I was up. And I know like the big ones. I've never heard of this one. I think I heard of the one I've watched, but I don't think I've ever seen it. I don't remember watching it. I've seen the movie, obviously. I saw the reboot, obviously.
The Jordan Peele reboot? Is that
Yeah,
what you
the
mean?
Jordan Peele reboot. And then like when we were growing up, Steve, they had like the amazing stories with the Spielberg one.
Yeah.
So and Jim Henson used to host it, that one too. So I used to watch those. We were kind of a little bit lighter fare than this. So it's a sci-fi and horror. It's an anthology series, which I like. So
Yeah, I figured that you've always known it and you've made reference to it just in the past. I was just curious if you were one of those OG fans or if you watched the marathons on the weekend, because we're about to get into your retelling in a minute. To get into our show today, because we're going to get back to this at the end, I promise you, we have 2 episodes that we're covering today. 2 very good episodes, Death's Head Revisited and The Midnight Sun. And the story I've told a million times about Midnight Sun is it's the one that kind of started this show. I told this story to Lila. I retold it to her in line at Disneyland, and it started this whole thing of me retelling her episodes of The Twilight Zone. So how it's going to go today is Dad's going to retell Kelly. Dad, that's the same thing. I always say that. My dad's going to retell Death's Head Revisited, and Steve is going to retell Midnight Sun. Death's Head
5 minutes?
In 5 minutes or less. Death's Head Revisited is from Season 3, Episode 9. It was aired on November 10th, 1961, directed by Don Medford and written by Rod Serling. Andy, the black and white narrator Belinsky, bring us his intro monologue.
Mr. Schmidt recently arrived in a small Bavarian village which lies 8 miles northwest of Munich. A picturesque, delightful little spot, one time known for its scenery, but more recently related to other events having to do with some of the less positive pursuits of man. Human slaughter, torture, misery, and anguish. Mr. Schmidt, as we will soon perceive, has a vested interest in the ruins of a concentration camp. For once, some 17 years ago, his name was Gunther Lutz. He held the rank of a captain in the SS. He was a black uniformed, strutting animal whose function in life was to give pain, and like his colleagues of the time, he shared the one affliction most common amongst that breed, known as Nazis. He walked the earth without a heart, and now former SS Captain Lutz will revisit his old haunts, satisfied perhaps that all that is awaiting him in the ruins of this hill is an element of nostalgia. What he does not know, of course, is that a place like Dachau cannot exist only in Bavaria. By its nature, by its very nature, it must be one of the populated areas of the Twilight Zone.
Let's do it.
5-minute clock on the timer. Death's Head Revisited. I've been very excited, Dad, for you to retell this episode specifically because you have some background to it. Here we go. 5 minutes on the clock. Let's roll.
I'm going to use a word that I rarely use on this show, and that is powerful. This is, to me, one of the most powerful classic Serling horror stories about the atrocities committed by the Nazis in the concentration camps in World War II. Backstory, not quite my generation, but I did live in Germany for a couple of years. My wife and I have visited the camps over there, so we have a firsthand knowledge of this stuff. Anyway, this story takes place 17 years after the end of World War II, which I find fascinating because Serling was so focused on this, and this is such a personal issue, that in 1962, when this was made, was exactly 17 years after the concentration camps were discovered and the end of World War II. This is, to him, a biography. This is no horror story. It's a horror story, but it's his personal, deep belief about what happened during World War II. So this middle-aged man walks into this small German hotel and asks for a room. And the woman at the front desk, she recognizes him as an SS captain back in the concentration camp days in this town during World War II. It happens to be in Dachau. He denies it. He says his name is Schmidt, and he storms out of the hotel. A taxi drops him off at the front gate of the camp. It's an abandoned camp. It still has the wooden gates and so forth up. And he walks inside. There's deserted buildings all around, including the gallows where they used to hang the prisoners. Suddenly, he sees images of prisoners hanging from them, and then they disappear. He sees himself in his uniform yelling at prisoners and entering the barracks, screaming orders to the Jewish prisoners in the barracks. And next to the detention building, a prisoner appears. So this, out of nowhere, appears this prisoner. And they talk. He and this prisoner start talking. Schmidt recognizes the man as a prisoner at the camp. Schmidt thinks that this guy is still alive because he even comments to the man. He says, "You haven't changed in 17 years. What are you, the caretaker of the camp?" So I call him SS Schmidt for obvious reasons. He defends himself and he says, "Don't get mad at me. The war is over. I only did what I was told to do." He tells the voices of these other prisoners that are now starting to appear and surround him. Schmidt tries to run out of the place, but the gates are locked. "Why do you come back to a place like this from South America?" says this prisoner. And he says, I miss the fatherland. So thought people would forget the little mistakes of the past. The things he says, the way he minimizes the horrible atrocities that he personally committed, I find fascinating. His arrogance, his ego, he just can't let it go. So the prisoner says, it is time for your trial. So the prisoner brings him into this room. Schmidt's surrounded by all the prisoners from the camp, and he's read the charges against him. And there's a whole litany of horrendous things that he's done. He screams, passes out, and wakes up again, thinking it's all a dream. And they're all still there. uh, so it's an amazing retelling of the horrors of the camp. As you listen to these charges, if you've ever read anything about World War II, the concentration camps, or you've seen documentaries, they go line by line by line of almost everything that the atrocities that were committed against the prisoners in these camps, which I found fascinating. So Schmidt remembers suddenly that he killed the prisoner before the Americans entered the camp, and he is found guilty. His punishment is that he will be rendered insane. He's not going to be killed, but he's going to live life out, but he's going to be insane. So he feels the bullets coming at him. He sees the torture rooms. He's feeling all of this internally, which is making him go insane. He feels the man being hung.
Yeah,
This is not revenge, says the prisoner. One thing he says, this is justice. The very last scene, Schmidt is laying on the ground surrounded by local police and ambulances, and they're trying to wake him up. They sedate him, they put him in an ambulance and carry him away, and their comment is, he's insane. He'll never recover. We don't know how he got here, why he came here, but he's obviously insane. So I found this to be, again, one of the most powerful episodes of the Twilight Zone ever made. Because I experienced all of these things over there myself, it is amazing how he portrayed it. He ends the show by saying that the camps, quote, must always remain standing as a witness to the crimes committed against humanity. This was personal by Rod. This wasn't just a horror story invented on a piece of paper. This was his own experience. That's it.
See, now once again, as far as the shot clock goes, I think you're now just milking it and playing with us because
I had to hear it
getting
ring.
it right to the line. I think next time we're going to have you go without notes because I'm really desperate to see you try to do this right without the clock there.
Here's the problem with those. I can't see. My light is so bad in here. I can't read a damn thing that I even wrote.
All right. So this is a tough one to be kind of goofy about. This is one of the episodes that I can't really find a way to make good jokes. I was just going to say, what are your ratings out of 1 to 10 sticks?
Out of 10?
I gave it a full 10, definitely.
I figured, yep. Yeah, that's awesome. That puts it up on that echelon list. I've got it as a 9. It's one of those ones that's great. If you ask Sarah, she'd probably say a 10. This is a brilliant episode. Steve, what do you got?
I'd say 9.5.
Damn. All right. Yeah, it's up there.
Close to a 10. Oh, maybe a 10. It's close. It's like right on that edge.
So before we go on to our opinions and reviews, I have a lot of trivia, and I'm going to try to get through it quickly for everybody. But before we go there, Andy, the narrator, Berlinski, give us Rod Serling's closing monologue.
There is an answer to the doctor's question. All the Dachaus must remain standing. The Dachaus, the Belsons, the Buchenwalds, and the Auschwitzes. All of them. They must remain standing because they are a monument to a moment in time when some men decided to turn the earth into a graveyard. Into it they shoveled all their reason, their logic, their knowledge, but worst of all, their conscience. And the moment we forget this, the moment we cease to be haunted by its remembrance, then we become the gravediggers. Something to dwell on and to remember not only in the Twilight Zone, but wherever men walk God's earth.
Thank you, sir. All right.
Well done.
Here we go. I have some trivia, and then we'll go into notes and opinions, and because the trivia is substantial. And usually I try to skim out the stuff that doesn't matter. A lot of this mattered. The first one is Oscar Bereji Jr. and Joseph Strickland both hailed from the distinguished Yiddish village, and the families had lost their European relatives in the Holocaust. They were kind of cast directly because of their relationship to the story. That is weird to me because, I don't know, acting that role while knowing that your family went through this shit, that seems like something that's a level of, either dedication or torture that you want to put yourself through. I can't fathom that.
Don't you think this is Serling, Steve, saying this is more than just an episode? I'm getting a point across
Yep.
to anyone that's watching this episode. I'm convinced, and we've been seeing this 2 or 3 times in episodes of his. When it comes to World War II, when it comes to politics and his moral compass, forget the theatrics. He brings in reality and he hits you right between the eyes with both fists. And that's what he did here. And I think that's why he brought them in. This has nothing to do with their acting skills.
You're probably right. By the way, I didn't say, but this has an 8.1 rating on IMDb. So
that's crazy low.
Yeah. The title refers to Totenkopf, a death's head symbol used by the SS during World War II, depicting a skull and crossbones. So that's what death's head mean. Dachau was the first Nazi concentration camp. I did not know that until reading this trivia.
Wow.
It is said that 10 million, he says in the episode that 10 million Jews were killed there. And that has been today proven incorrect. It's over 13 million as reported today. Captain Lutz is described as a Dachau commandant who served at the camp until he was captured, after which he fled to safe exile. In fact, Dachau commandant who was served after 1936 was alive. No Dachau commandant after 1936 was alive at this time of the episode was made. By the late 1940s, all of the latter commandants of Dachau had committed suicide, died in battle, or had been executed for war crimes. That is one bit that makes me feel a little bit okay about this, that none of those people were alive when this episode was made 18 years later, or whatever the hell it was. None of them. That's freaking wild. Notably,
except for one.
I'll get to that one in a second.
Okay.
Notably, and this one I thought you would say something about, Dad, the ending narration includes the words "the Twilight Zone" in the middle rather than the end. His monologue, if you go back, is in the middle. I said that was interesting. Oscar Bereji Jr. appeared in 2 episodes of The Twilight Zone that weren't this. The Rip Van Winkle character, Capel, and Mute from 1963, which is season 5. The name of this episode is a grim satire of Evelyn Waugh-'s 1945 novel, Brideshead Revisited. So you'll get kind of where he came with the title. All right. This one's kind of long, but it's interesting. And it's what my dad was just saying. During Rod Serling's narrative, he states that Captain Lutz was from South America. At the time, many countries in South America, notably Brazil and Argentina, did not have extradition treaties with foreign countries and consequently were hiding places for Nazi and war criminals. The most famous of them that they based this character on was Dr. Joseph Mengele, a physician known as Dr. Death, who performed illegal and grotesque medical experiments on the prisoners in those camps. It was rumored that Mengele had escaped to Brazil at the end of the war and had died there a few years later. It turns out that, in fact, he lived there and died in 1979, which was confirmed by his son in 1985. And then in 1992, they excavated the body to make sure, and it was proven by DNA. Okay. So the guy faked his own death in 1979, and no one cared. And then his son is the one.
My mom did autopsies for the medical examiner's office in Utah. Through her contacts, I have a copy of his death certificate and autopsy from South America.
That's wild. That's absolutely insane. And then the last one is due to the religiously inspired anti-Semitism that existed during the time that this came out. None of the prisoners were depicted in this episode, showing the yellow Star of David. I thought that was interesting. He wanted to keep it down. Weird. So I thought the episode was amazing. Obviously, it has a 9 rating for me. Very impactful, like what he said. Steve, what do you got?
I mean, some of the notes I have, they literally showed a image of Hitler in the background. Like, I was like, oh my, okay, so that's like this Hitler right there. It seemed to me to take from the Telltale Heart from Poe a little bit too. Like, it's very much familiar, that kind of tone, and that kind of, beating of the heart type deal. And it works well. Like, everything. I think this is one of the best episodes that I've never heard of. It's, I've heard of, I've seen the one with Shatner and the wing on the plane and
Terror at 20,000 feet.
Yeah, I've seen all those, the glasses one and that kind of stuff. But wow, this stuff is really bad for me.
That's
I
what I'm
can't
saying.
do this when I'm hosting.
The glasses one, I like that.
I like that. Well, that's what everyone knows, the glasses one.
Yep.
Did you want to hear my one joke? It's pretty bad.
Yeah, of course.
It's not bad. But it's like dad joke bad for us. Where the hell is Magneto when you need him? That's it.
All right. So scooting along to season 3, episode 10. One of my favorite episodes is The Midnight Sun. And that was aired on November 17th, 1961, directed by Anton Leader and written by Rod Serling. And I didn't really put a pressure on this before because I wanted to let you guys talk it out, especially to hear what my dad was thinking. But both episodes on this were written 100% by Rod Serling. And those are those ones that I really think are interesting when he has multiple back-to-back that are just him. It's just him. Andy, the black and white narrator Belinsky, can you please give us Rod Serling's intro monologue? Swipe.
The word that Mrs. Bronson is unable to put into the hot, still, sodden air is doomed, because the people you've just seen have been handed a death sentence. 1 month ago, the Earth suddenly changed its elliptical orbit, and in doing so began to follow a path which gradually, moment by moment, day by day, took it closer to the sun. And all of man's little devices to stir up the air are now no longer luxuries. They happen to be pitiful and panicky keys to survival. The time is 5 minutes to 12, midnight. There is no more darkness. The place is New York City, and this is the eve of the end, because even at midnight, it's high noon, the hottest day in history, and you're about to spend it in the Twilight Zone.
All right. So, Steve, same rules apply. Get your shit together. Boy, here we go. 5 minutes on that clock. Going over The Midnight Sun, a much more uplifting, if you could call that.
Uplifting? You sound like Scully.
Here we go. 5 minutes. Go for it, baby.
I'm going to start with a Robert Frost poem first here. Some say the world will end in fire, some say in ice. From what I've tasted of desire, I hold with those who favor fire. But if it had to perish twice, I think I know enough of hate to say that for destructive ice is also great and would suffice. That's from Robert Frost.
That was awesome. What? That was great. First guest ever to bring in their own background material.
It's the first thing I thought of when I watched this episode. So it starts off with a young lady, say like in her 30s, maybe late 20s, 30s, in New York. New York always sucks, and sucks even more now. But like, you got this melting, you got the sun closer to the orbit because the Earth went out of orbit for some reason. It's not really explained, doesn't need explanation. But as the orbit of the sun gets closer to the orbit of the Earth gets closer to the sun gets hotter. Everything's getting hotter day by day. It's going up. I think it was like 120 degrees on the second day. And we open with her painting a picture of the sun behind the Empire State Building. I think it's the Empire State Building. And then you hear a family start to leave, and then the other lady from the other department across the way start talking to the family. They talk about him like leaving for Canada because it's colder up there. And she's talking about how traffic is terrible and there's no way to get up there. He should just stay, but everybody's abandoning all these cities to go up north. So they separate. They say their goodbyes. The two ladies separate. She goes in. She's drinking water, and she's just kind of going back to the painting, just trying to survive. Now, this is where it gets fuzzy. Thanks, Steve, for making me do this. Where she goes to the grocery store, if I remember right. She goes to the grocery store, comes back. We see her come back. She has a bag of groceries. The other lady hears her, goes into room with her. They share like a can of juice. And,
grapefruit.
Yes, grapefruit juice. And they drink it and they're talking. And they're listening to the radio, which is my favorite part is the radio announcer kind of breaking down, saying how hard it is, that there's still hope. And he's like, there's no more hope. And you can like the fight of the producer or director, like trying to get that away from him, the microphone away from him. Fucking brilliant. That's like next level writing. There's also a scene where she's just like leaning on the window and she burns herself, which is also next level writing.
Yeah.
Eventually they hear a guy from the top come in. He's trying to break in. She has a gun, and I put, what did I say? Holy shit, she has a gun. And then so he tries to show. He says he's leaving. Another point of brilliant writing. This is how great he is. She goes over. The younger lady goes over to see if he actually is leaving the building, and the stupid old lady opens the goddamn door and lets him in. And then there's a fight for the gun. He's like, I'm not this type of person, and leaves and actions forgive him, tells the story about his wife and his baby who was born and then died instantly because of the heat.
Freaking heartbreaking.
Heartbreaking. And then eventually the old lady passes out and dies. And then the special effects in this are great for 1950s. The paintings start to melt. It's so hot, and then eventually she collapses, and then you think it's over, but wait, there's more. She wakes up, and it's cold outside, and it's the reverse of that. And it just kind of ends that way, and they talk about going to Florida instead of going to Canada, and then it just kind of stops.
Because she had a fever and she was
yes,
sick.
she had the fever. She was sick, so
she felt hot.
Right,
so
but it was cold.
Her subconscious was that even though the exact opposite. All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and stop our timer because you smoked that. No shots today. We're good as is. Andy, the narrator, Berlinski, give us the exit monologue.
The poles of fear, the extremes of how the earth might conceivably be doomed. Minor exercise in the care and feeding of a nightmare. Respectfully submitted by all the thermometer watchers in the Twilight Zone.
Steve, great retelling. I wanted to remember to follow up on like 4 of the things that you said. First of all, let's go through ratings. Dad, what do you got for this one?
I gave it a 9. I thought it was very entertaining. I had a blast.
Yep. Steve?
Yeah, I gave it a 9 just for the writing alone. It's freaking brilliant.
Yeah, this is one of the first times all 3 of us are the exact same. We all gave it 9s, which is 1 scotch below perfection.
Yeah.
IMDb has it as one of the top 10 highest rated episodes at an 8.4. It doesn't seem super high, but when you compare it to the other ones, it's smoking it. So what an amazing episode. There's only a little bit of trivia, and I just want to go through this before we get into some dialogue because I really want to break this one down. Steve, you said this, and I was pumped that you brought this up, but of course a screenwriter like you would see this. To create the melting pot painting effect, the painting was reproduced in wax and put on a hot plate.
That's crazy.
Come on, dude. The stuff that Rod Serling and his crew had to come up with in the 50s, let's redo that with wax and then literally melt it on a hot plate.
That was amazing. It's a great effect. It was done CGI. If it was like today. Easy.
Yeah, no joke. Mrs. Bronson says the painting reminds her of the tallest waterfall in Ithaca, New York.
Oh, I forgot about the waterfall painting.
Which is 11 miles north where Rod Serling lived and grew up. So clearly that was a nod to, he taught at Ithaca College. For her lead performance in the role, struggling actress Lois Nettleton was paid a modest sum of $1,200, slightly over $13,000 last year. However, in another way, her work paid off handsomely because
she got a bigger role, right? In like a Barbra Streisand movie or something?
You just said it. She was supporting Jane Fonda in a period of adjustment from 1962. She won the role, launched her career as a highly respected and named actress. I love that. But this is not uncommon. The Twilight Zone recruited a lot of low-key actors for budgetary reasons because after
theater actors. That's why everything's so big. Actors. Yeah, that's why they act because they're playing to the back of the house and not playing to the camera. So that's why a lot of the stuff is more boisterous or more,
Absolutely. So Rod Serling's original script featured 2 characters who do not appear in this one. And typically I delete this kind of trivia and I don't go over it, but this one made it interesting. A police officer and a refrigerator repairman. These roles are significant, not only because Serling wrote them, but because he went so far as to cast them before he cut them from the script. Why they were cut faces back to the Twilight Zone's budgetary problems, which had been growing significantly since James T. Aubrey Jr. became the chief executive officer of CBS in the show's 2nd season. Steve, the freaking studio, right? Similar problems occurred during the shooting of The Self-Improvement of Salvador Ross in 1964. So let's just break this thing down in a quick minute. Steve, you brought up some points that I really wanted to rant about in a second. Number one, the idea that the twist is the reverse of what she was feeling is you would think it's a super simple twist, but it was
Yeah.
it wasn't. It's so good that with a fever you feel hot when it's cold outside. The idea that she woke up, Dad, that has to count for your shot clock score, right? Your shots. That twist was great.
But not only the twist was awesome, but what did she say to sum up that twist? Her last sentence was, "Isn't it wonderful to have darkness and the cool?" So
Yeah.
she wakes up from her fever-induced stupor, and she comments on, "Oh God, this is so nice and cool." Why they're all freezing to death.
To death.
Right.
Absolutely. So the other thing was my favorite part of the episode, which I've seen over 100 times. And every time I like it more, as you said it, is the news people on the radio. The guy starts to lose his control or his composure.
Oh, he loses his shit.
Yeah.
No one no broadcaster would do any differently. It was amazing what was written on paper and then translated on screen, because the fighting over the control over who is on camera, you can't say that.
Yeah.
What are they going to do? We're all melting. We're all going to die. Was, I believe,
Right.
one of the most top 5 Twilight Zone things that Rod Serling wrote that would happen in real life, like the monsters on Maple Street, Dad, the shelter. These are things that definitely would happen. That would happen too. I love the idea of a small crew still being there, and when the guy in charge starts to melt down, that's exactly how it's going to go. People are going to say that. Dad, you got any thoughts on this one?
My only other thought, well, there's two. My first thought is at the very beginning where she says it's 5 minutes to midnight, but the sun's still shining. Okay. The scientific part of my brain says, okay, wait a minute. That
Never
means that
happened.
the Earth has stopped rotating.
Yeah.
If the Earth's rotation stops, gravity disappears, you're all dead. So I thought that was the most bizarre statement I'd heard, because that cannot happen physically.
Yeah.
The world would have exploded. And the second thing was, the reason I remember it was grapefruit juice. I had made myself a greyhound right before sitting down and watching these, and I'm on my second one, and she gets out this can of grapefruit. I'm going, "You got it, girl.
Yeah,
Bring on the grapefruit." So
I feel like an absolute idiot for not figuring out the midnight thing. It would
Yeah.
still be dark. It would
Yeah.
still be hot, but
it was light, but it was
It would just mean
light
that
outside the whole
the
time. I'm
Earth
going,
is currently just constantly going like that.
Yeah.
At the
that means bodies are flying off the
Yeah.
surface, right?
The
Man,
poles
I
would have
just-
to switch. Be like they have to be on its side almost. And New York
So-
would have
Yeah.
to be where Antarctica is now.
I
had
thought
never.
the hand on the glass when she got burnt,
Yeah.
that was the visual that sold the whole episode to me. What they had to do back then, because of the lack of technology, it was so simple and so heartfelt. When she jerked back, you're going, "My God, that must have been hot." And then you're right into it. I thought it was awesome.
Absolutely. Would you rather be super hot or super cold?
Super cold.
Or you guys are, yeah, cold because you can attempt to make yourself warmer, right? Is that
Yes.
the answer? There's no way.
Start running and you'll warm up. It doesn't matter how cold it is.
What's the Steve?
I'm also fat, so I have more energy. I'm always hot, so being cold's not gonna bother me as much.
I had a very strong opinion on this because I asked Sarah, and then it flipped. Would you rather die from heat or freezing to death? And at first I was like, well, easily freezing to death. You kind of just fall asleep. Based on everything that I read, because Sarah goes, "I think you got that wrong." It is way faster death if you overheat. Your
That's
brain.
what I heard. I heard cold is faster.
See, go look it up. I Googled it. I read like 4 pages. Dad, what about you?
Let me ask you this: heat or fire?
Oh, fuck fire. I don't, that's
Fire
my number
scares
one.
the hell out of me. If it's just heat, I'll take heat. If
like
it's
in the
fire
episode.
creating the heat, get me out of there. Give me an iceberg.
Yeah, that's not, fire is totally different. I just meant eminent heat, like what
Okay.
she's
Yeah.
going through.
Like Georgia humidity in the summer. Yeah.
Yeah, which you won't be suffering anymore.
I will not be suffering it
But you'll be
anymore.
moving to Arizona, which also has famous heat. Steve, did
But
you
it's a
find
dry
something for
heat.
us or no?
So comparing typical environmental exposure, severe heat is often quicker to cause death.
If I'm on a planet that is going,
But is it okay? It might be quicker, but is it less painful?
I think they go hand in hand.
I don't think so. Because cold, you just go to sleep. You might last
No, you
longer.
don't.
Yeah,
But-
but you're freezing your ass off before you go to sleep. That is true, Steve. if you're shivering at 10 below and 5 minutes later it's now 15 below and you're just shivering more and you can't stop it, that's like an endless torture. Whereas if heat, you go quicker, maybe the release is just quicker. So that's better.
See, this could be why this is an interesting question, because I still don't really know where I stand on it. I think that both ways suck, and I hope I go out on my own accord, not like that. Steve, before we end the show, can you please hype up the next thing coming out? I'm sure that you guys have another Wheel of Music, but what's the name of your show again, and when is it coming out? Because I love this factor. It alternates weeks with the Highlight Zone. We're every other Thursday, and then in between is the Steve's new show, which I think is great.
So Whale Music is Wednesday. I don't know, I'm not sure when this one is coming up, but it'll probably be on the new Whale. And if I'm right, it will be Kendrick Lamar's album. I forget which one, but we do a Kendrick album. And then the Paranormal Pair will be back with this show. The next one, like I said, is GFK. And then we are going to figure out, she's picking the next one that we're going to deep dive. And then I think after we get a few under our belt, we'll probably have some guests on, which you will be one of them. I have a friend who does urban photography and went into the abandoned insane asylum in Boston, in Massachusetts. The one where they shot Session 7. Do you remember that movie? With, yeah, that she went in there and shot pictures and stuff. So she has some stories. So yeah, we got some stuff coming up on the channel here.
But anyway, thank you everybody for watching. Thank you everybody for joining. Steve, thank you for joining for the first time. I love it.
And remember, Steve, where can you find this?
You can find us on YouTube or on. You mean where can you find the Twilight Zone?
Yeah.
Paramount Plus.
You can also find Star Trek on there. Steve should watch Deep Space Nine, even though I've told him 1,000 billion times he doesn't want to watch it.
Yeah, but you have to remember the rule of 3. It has to come from 3 different sources.
I've told you more than 3 fucking times.
I just changed it right now. I said sources. All right, guys. Well, thanks again for joining us, everyone. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.
In another dimension.
Makes you wonder, doesn't it? Where is this place and when? The answer is, it doesn't make any difference.
Can you say eggs?
Steve is.